This is a recap of our Castles and Crusades session 3. It started off with two of my returning players. We had Lork, the half-orc ranger, and Rothgar, human rogue. Together, they wake up, find themselves in like a prisoner cart, and groggy and beaten from an altercation the night before. In the cart with them is another character, a human, that is belongs to a new player that just started today with us, my group. And he's playing Ronan, a human fighter, recently off the local farm and seeking adventure, and was picked up by these bounty hunters slash slavers on the road and captured. So they make camp and they're locked in this cart. They recognize or pick out certain people. There's a female named Cray that seems to be the leader. She talks to the party and tells the rogue Rothgar that she's bringing him back to Red Rock, which is a prison and where he had escaped from. So there's a bounty for his head. Lork is going to be brought to this town called Black Hollow that has a slave market where he's going to be sold off. And she's not sure what she's going to do with Ronan yet. She's undecided. So they sit around for a while as the slavers make camp. And while they're doing that, another group of slavers come in, the second part of their band, and they're bringing in this large, very distinct creature. That's this thing right here. And it's all tied up with ropes, and they're dragging it in, and they stake it to the ground, and it doesn't look happy. And so the party makes this plan to lift the keys off one of the slavers, this fat drunkard named Otis, and with a little bit of helping each other, Lork and Rothgar are able to steal the keys. And later they wait until it starts to get dark, and they make their escape. There's actually 3 carts. They're in one cart. The middle cart has equipment for all of the caravan and their equipment that was taken off them. So Rothgar retrieves their equipment, goes back, and they've made this plan that they're going to free the creature as a distraction and try to escape, which Rothgar and Ronan set up over here because there's a guard, and they're getting ready to take him out while Lork circles around, comes in here, and he's able to stealth across and free this creature, who thanks him telepathically and then proceeds to just rip through the encampment with quite a bit of ferocity. They use that and make their escape, fleeing west further into the woods. Lork leads them. They find an old path, and that path eventually leads to a very old ruin. It's probably close to 200 years old. And they search the ruin, don't find anything of interest inside the ruin, but they do find the entrance to a burial tomb. And Lork, I believe Lork forced entry into that because the door was just warped shut over time. So they go into the burial tomb. Get this out of the way somewhere. Pardon my camera. Oh. So they come in here, and Lork busts down the door, almost falls down these steps. They go through this short tunnel, cave tunnel, until they come to this room here. In this room here, 4 skeletons come out of these coffins and just immediately attack the party. This was actually, they're in this group, the Lork is 2nd level, and the rest of the party, the other 2 were 1st level. This was actually a really tough fight, mostly because of the fact that the players rolled like garbage. And eventually they do defeat the skeletons, but it was looking a little dicey there for a bit. They go into this next room, and there's 2 on the board, but there's actually 4 stone sarcophagus. And they search those, finding the remains of 2 children and an adult female. In the final sarcophagus they open, there's a male in there, but he's a zombie, and he starts to rise. But because zombies always go last, Lork is able to slam the stone lid back down on its hand, partially severing its hand, and they trap it in there, and they could just hear the thumping of it being trapped in there for probably the rest of eternity, unless somebody else comes along here. They loot this, they find some treasure, leave some things that they can tell belong to the kids, take other things that they, just because they're greedy adventurers, they took it. But then they proceed across here. This changes to back to a cavern with a pool of water just covered in a layer of scum. They cross this with no difficulty. They get to this chamber here, and it's kind of as it seems. It's worked in natural stone formation. There's a single sarcophagus, a table and a chair over here, and everything's covered in a layer of webbing, spider webs. Ronan gets the idea they all hang back at the entrance over here. Ronan goes in, douses this thing with oil, and then traces it back to here, lights it on fire, and when that starts to go up in flames, they hear a screeching noise, and a skeleton, a spider drops down, a medium-sized spider. So they win initiative, and the rogue, Hrothgar, goes first. He shoots an arrow from back here, hits it with a critical hit, and did a lot of damage using an alternate critical hit system that's in the Castle Keeper's Guide. So he rolled max damage ×2 on his critical. So he almost kills it in one hit. Up next is Ronan, who had a really tough time with the skeleton battle. Like, it wasn't until the last couple rounds before he actually started hitting, and that again was just because my new player, Steve, was having really crappy dice rolls. And he does a charge, runs in, and luckily for him, hits it and finishes it off. So they made really short work of the big bad of the tomb, and it would have been a tough fight, but those 2 hits were enough to do it in. They search this. They find a female in here, the remains of a woman, and then they find over here there's a guy, or the remains of a man, sitting in a chair. He's got a wine bottle, and there's an easel next to him with a painting of the woman, which they deduce to be this woman in here. And they find the tattered remains of his journal. It's very old. And they read it, and he talks about being a lord from a town called Dustthorn, which they know is basically a haunted town. It fell to ruin about over 150 years ago. And he talks about having to leave his estate behind and coming to his summer home to escape the Grey Death, which killed everybody in town. So they loot all this stuff. Being adventurers, they take all this stuff and they head back out. When they get back out of the ruin, the creature that they freed and that tore up the slaver encampment is waiting for them, and telepathically continues to speak to all of them, thanking them. And they talk to it for a little bit. It tells them that its name is Otan, and it is from the Feywild, and that if they were to cross paths again, he would call them friends because they rescued him. And that was the end of the adventure. They returned home to the town of Arden, and we'll take it up next time with what they decide to do next. For terrain, this is all Dwarven Forge here with some, I think, Galadoria games and some Reaper stuff here. but the terrain itself is Dwarven Forge. The first board, the Wilderness board, that is, I made that, and the terrain and miniatures are Reaper, WizKids, I think Galadoria Games again. The creature is a 3D print that I got from Barthel's Marvels off Etsy, and it's a freaking kick-ass miniature and print. They do great work. If you need 3D prints, go see them because they do really awesome work. I've bought a lot of stuff from them. The trees and terrain I made from trees I bought off Amazon and reflocked and built the basis for. But yeah, so that's our third session of Castles and Crusades. It went great, and we're all looking forward to playing again. Thanks for watching.